I've had a lot of love and hate for teamfight tactics as of late, especially with this current soon-to-be over set 5. Ask some of my friends and they'll tell you that I've had a back and forth with this so-called TFT video for months. One minute I love it and I'm 1/3 into a tutorial video on how to play it. Next minute I hate it and I'm writing a script about everything I despise about it, with no actual substance or point, just me ranting for 5 paragraphs. This is when I realized that making any sort of essay style script was really difficult for this subject matter, because TFT has been such a journey. I know it's only been out for a couple years and it's already had some highs and lows, so the only well-constructed way I could describe how I felt about the last 5 sets of TFT was a Set 1 was unfortunately the test dummy. I know a lot of people love Set 1 for it being simplistic yet exciting. I'll be transparent and say that I never had the privilege to play this set, but I did do some research so I could give it a fair placement. Set 1 suffered from a lot of bugs, lack of gameplay clarity, queue times being way too long, and a lack of balance. But it looked like a lot of fun. You had Aesol blasting people for a stupid amount of damage, you had Pantheon come blasting down from Dragon Heaven murdering people, and you had Gunslingers, well, just blasting. Because of it being the beta set, really all you saw was Knights, Nobles, Phantom, Dragons. The willingness to get weird in mix and match builds was very limited due to the aforementioned gameplay clarity. Because auto chess was a new and rising genre, I don't think the player base had the confidence to stray much further than these comfort synergies. And unlike future sets, there was no mid-season or every other patch update adding new original traits. After watching streamers and content creators play it for 5 months with little to no changes, it felt like things began to get stale. And this may have been an additional cause for not many people jumping aboard early on. There isn't much to say since it was technically the beta set, so I put Set 1 in C tier. Just out of respect for Pantheon. Also, I can respect the fact that given the small genre that auto chess was, Riot probably didn't want to put all their effort into this in case it flopped. Alright, Set 2 is my jam. This is where I started my addiction and have all of my nostalgia in. I to this day use this set as a reference point of what makes a good gimmick. The elemental hexes on the field made for a new experience almost every game, but they did make things awkward with team placement. If Riot let the player pick which hex they wanted to have the element buff on, then it would add a lot more strategy to your game and benefit your team rather than hinder them. I also love the inclusion of Qiyana and Lux. Qiyana would change her origin depending on which element was in play for that game, giving even more strategy for your team. Lux did a similar thing, but instead her origin would change in the unit shop. Lux also created the Set 4 gimmick of adding 2 into your overall synergy, making it so you could mix and match depending on which Lux you wanted. Set 2 didn't come without flaws as well though. It was littered with bugs as well as overpowered comps and units. Summoners are the first thing that come to mind when I think of bugs and overpowered. This comp hasn't seen the light of day since Set 2, and with good reason. Were they fun? Absolutely. Was it annoying as hell when someone in your lobby ran them? Absolutely. This alongside units like Singe, where you could put Inferno or Glacial Origin on him and he would leave layers of ice and fire. Just a lot of general oversights that were missed or rather not smoothed out that made this set kind of a mess. But on the other side of the coin, the same issue that made the game annoying made it amazing. With so many unique synergies that we really haven't seen since, like Woodland and my personal favorite Soulbound, a synergy where Center or Lucian wouldn't die unless both of them died, represented their lore perfectly, and this showed that Riot was willing to get weird and do synergies that didn't just change stats but rather something completely unique. I also acknowledge that my nostalgia glasses are on when I look back at this set, so I give Set 2 Rise of the Elements a B tier. It was better than Bea's set, but not quite up there yet. Set 3 really ran with what Set 2 laid out. It introduced a space theme that allowed Riot to get weird and embrace their already established skin lines like Star Guardian, Darkstar, Celestial, and all the other weird Stop saying pop. And all the other weird post-apocalyptic Void-esque champions. I thoroughly enjoyed it thematically and thought Riot did a good job with the gimmick for what it was supposed to be. Set 3 made it so every game had the chance to be a different universe, meaning a variety of things, such as, but not limited to, the Nicoverse, where all players started with 2 Nico's help, Treasure Trove, all minions and monsters drop loot orbs, and Salvage World. Selling a champion would break down all their finished items into the components that made them. This made for unique play every time, but honestly, it was so-so for me. me. It felt more like an extras mode or party mode than base TFT. I assume this is what they used for inspiration when making Hyper Roll as an extra mode later on during set 5. None of the universes changed the game dramatically except for the ones where you start off with more or less health depending on which universe. And personally, what saved the entire set was the comps. I had fun playing all of them. My personal favorite to run was Protector and Mystic because the synergy was so good and the champs were not broken whatsoever. Don't even talk to me, Alex. You're wrong.
Because literally you got tier 3 fucking everything else. That's so fucking dumb.
There were a few teams that took a couple years off my life, like every motherfucker running Gangplank at the end of the set, or when Mech Pilot was so broken that you couldn't even kill the mech, let alone if you did, then all the pilots would be full health and bust out of the whoever remains. Fuck! But overall, every team had their place, and no matter what, it was a good time. I give set 3 an A tier. Don't even get me started on the blasting in this set. I am going to give the mid-set updates their own representation because a lot of the time they either make or break the game, so I want to make sure I add a little segment about them too. The mid-set 3.5 update removed some units, traits, origins, universes, and added others. Ultimately, I don't think anything that they added made much of a meta or fun to play change, but the things they removed did for sure. Riot took out 2 very powerful origins, Void and Valkyrie. These became very meta because of the synergy buffs that came with it. The champs associated with their abilities made them even more of a powerhouse. The universes that were removed and added didn't make too much of a grand difference for me. I would have preferred all of it been in extra game mode anyway, so since no massive changes affected the game too much for me personally, I would also put 3.5 with 3 in the A tier spot. Set 4 personally was the most consistent out of them all. It took its gimmick and owned it. What I loved about the set's gimmick was how ease of access it was. I was sitting here in some of these past and future sets trying to explain quantum physics to my friends, just so they can understand how to be successful in the game, which we'll touch base on in the next set. But as for this one, I was like, hey, when someone shows up in your shop with a highlighted trait or origin, that means you get 2 of that trait or origin, and that unit has better stats than normal. And that was so easy to say and then just hop in a game. Honestly, this set, I got most of my friends into TFT altogether. Having the Chosen mechanic opened so many doors of blending teams and making unique builds, that after they got rid of it in set 5, I felt lost. I secretly just wanted them to keep it as a forever game mechanic. Now, as always, set 4 did not come without its frustrating times, like how you would sometimes go an entire game without finding a Chosen because it was still up to RNG whether or not you got one, or how early on in the set there was no way to tell what levels you would find certain expense champs like 4 to 5 cost units with the Chosen buff on them, or how Aphelios would keep murdering your team while everyone stood idle waiting for him to come back with his GA, but his autos wouldn't stop. It wouldn't stop. I didn't forget Riot. Riot did fix the majority of these annoying issues. They added a toolbar like the champ shop to show you what levels you were most likely to find what cost Chosens, then taking Aphelios out completely. They never did really fix the issue of not finding a Chosen all game, but that felt hard to do without making it too common to find them. Set 4 was amazing. I had a blast, and I wish Riot would add a mode where you could go back and play old sets as they were. I put set 4 in an easy S tier. I know I just sat here and praised set 4 up and down, but there were a couple things that bugged me come 4.5. The main cause was actually the gimmick creating an unintentionally annoying trend. Getting an already built 2-star unit of any rarity meant every tryhard and their brother was trying to copy the streamers and YouTubers by making easy 3-star 5-cost units. Every single match after 4.5 drop, there was some bozo that was doing this and it got old real quick. A minor issue, but still irritating when it worked. My other disappointment was with who they removed in the mid-set. I just feel like they removed all of the main things I played or had fun with. Now don't get me wrong, this was fair for them to do, but still a bummer. Hunters, Moonlight, and Jinx were super fun to play, and Moonlight was the most unique thing Riot added to TFT since Lux in set 2. Having a champ go to 4-star and having to slow roll early to make that happen gave a really different feel from all the other synergies. Jinx and Warwick / almost all the Hunters were pretty OP, so I understand them getting rid of them, but they still were really fun to play. Even though they took out a lot of things I liked, they did add my next favorite synergy being Fabled. I love Nico, and that synergy fit really well into others. Not to mention the Lucky Lanterns and Ornn being added. Ornn was super unique. I loved how they played into his character lore with his item creating ability. And even though his ability was super strong, it wasn't super broken because you could only put one item per unit. The Lucky Lanterns gave these also unique to TFT items like Reforger, Lucky Dice, and Magnetic Remover. They added new strategy on how you wanted to roll for your units and how you wanted to use your items in the early, mid, and late game. Even with all they took away, I think the amount they added made up for it. So I also keep 4.5 at S tier. Fuck, dude. I should have done this before set 4 because now we get to end this video on an angry/sad note. I'm gonna say this now so it's out there beforehand. D tier. Set 5 is by far my least favorite set so far. It has everything to do with the items and how they made the game this overbearing, stressful, and way over convoluted mess. To try and explain how any of the shadow items work is impossible for me to this day. I still cannot tell you what 80% of them did. I, for the first time, had to use a guide so I could have a fighting chance and in any way help my new to the game friends with what to do. On a broken level, these items were just dumb on some champs. They made them borderline unkillable, Draven being the best example. His origin trait worked well with him, and then you add a singular shadow item and he is one-shotting people. Not to mention the tank items that made Hecarim actually unkillable. Like, I'm not even being dramatic. Look at this. Shit. My Kale's dead.
Wait, is that allowed?
Yeah, it is.
Wait, is that allowed?
Yeah. It's oversights and general lack of care that made set 5 unbearable for me. I really have sat here and thought about this for a while to try and pull any good to say about this set, but I really don't think I can. The most interesting feature that was in this set was how Teemo costs life instead of money, but even he is annoying. If it's a 1v1 with a Teemo, no matter what, the Teemo wins. That's his whole gimmick, is you can't beat the 1v1. I really hate to sit here and probably bash on someone's favorite set, but honestly, I'm sorry, I can't stand it. This set alone has caused me so much grief and is what caused me to not make my tutorial video. Easy D tier, borderline F tier, bad time. Now I know I said we would end on a sad/angry note, but I decided to do the mid sets separately after already writing the script, so we actually get to end on an optimistic level. Set 5.5 Dawn of Heroes actually redeemed a lot of Reckoning's issues. Now don't get me wrong, I still am not a fan of set 5 as a whole, but this at least made me regain my composure enough to make this video. 5.5 Dawn of Heroes introduced a substitute to shadow items in the form of radiant items. These are super powerful items that you could only get one of per game, so you had to pick wisely on which champion you wanted to have it. On top of that, it's not components that you have to put together, it's already made pre-built items that everyone gets at the same time. The only downside is everyone's selection is random, so some people get much better picks than you, but fortunately the limit of 1 didn't allow this to be overwhelming. Later on, like they normally do at the end of a set, they made the gimmick more arcadey, so now you can get 2 radiant items and an additional loot orb that will provide you with something you specifically might need, like a whole bunch of coins or items that you might be missing, or even units to tier a champion up. So I love the radiant item gimmick and wish this is what 5 was from the beginning. I've been able to make fun teams that are not meta, and I'm no longer restricted to playing whatever is broken that patch. I was a little bummed that they took out Dragon Slayer because I had a lot of fun with that, and I actually got my first Mr. 100 game on that, but I understand because it was a really strong team on why they took it out. So I put Dawn of Heroes in C tier. Better than Reckoning, but it still had its flaws. If you're still with me at this point, I appreciate it. I put a lot of hard work, and I know that last segment was very long-winded, and there's at least one person that thinks I'm a dum-dum and needs to get good, because obviously there was a perfect counter comp, and if I just but hey, that's okay, and I respect that you might not agree, but still, Ouch, my feelings and pride. I would love to take the conversation deeper and discuss anything that you may agree or disagree with. I know I've said probably a lot of controversial things, and I think it's only fair that I hear some people out. Now, at the time of making this video, Riot put out an actual video, like a more than 2-second effort video advertising their new Gizmos and Gadgets set, and going into surprising depth with it. I'm super happy to see this because the promotion for TFT has been non-existent, and the gimmick for this set actually looks super unique and not overwhelming.
Technology, wait, what? Do my sensors deceive me? Looks like one of those new augment inventions. At key points in each game, you'll be offered a choice between augments. Augments are unique buffs that hook onto your tactician. These buffs can stack, last the entire game, and affect just about anything. Provide combat power, boost your economy, modify champion shops, and whatever else you can think of with that primitive meat brain of yours.
So I have high hopes for what's coming for us. Seeing Riot actually try gives me more faith that more budget and more time will be spent in the future on this game as it grows more popular. And you know what? I still have my reservations, and I really doubt there's any way they're ever gonna pull me into this game as hard as I ever was. Look at him! Look at the little boy! It's my son! It's my actual son! Look at him! I mean, honestly, TFT is the greatest game ever. Everything I said before this moment is shit.